Welcome back to Developers Home. Today we are solving one more problem and that too using MySQL and Apache Spark. So you know that earlier we were solving all the problems using PostgreSQL and Spark, but now we are also using MySQL. So if you have seen earlier video or blog, we have understood that how to set up MySQL system and how to load data and how to create tables in MySQL. So now we'll go to problem and see what's our problem. So we have data in which we have transactional data and which is containing ID, user ID, item, created at, and revenue, which is data structure. So when you write a query that will identify returning active users, so these are the users data, users transaction data, and we have like what item that user purchase and when they purchase. And based on that, we need to get active users or returning active users. So what can we consider as an active returning user? So it says that user that has made a second purchase within 7 days of any of their purchases. Output list of user IDs of these returning active users. Good. So here we need to find returning active users. So you know that as always, we divide this problem into multiple steps. And what we currently do is first, you know that we have only one table, and that table is if you go here into our MySQL workbench, and if I just display data, so I can see that okay, I have ID, user ID, item, and created it. It means when that item was purchased and revenue. So we only need to care about user and when that user purchased this item. So if we somehow get second purchase date here for same user, so it will be helpful. And when we that need this data, we need to join tables. So we use join conditions, but we have only one table, so we join this table two times by giving alias. And then what we do is like we get user ID, we get first purchase date and next purchase date or whatever purchase date, but we want to get users all the purchases with one line, so it will be easy to visualize and easy to understand. So for that, I'm just writing join condition that okay, transaction consider as a a1, transaction consider as a a2, and a1 dot user id is equal to a2 dot user id. So now what I'm saying is I need all the data in one line, and I'm just joining with user ID. So now if I execute this one, I can see that okay, so I'm getting user 109 which is connecting with user 109, and here I have first purchase bread and then milk, or maybe first milk and then bread, but I have two purchases in a one line. So now it's easy for me to that get difference between 2 days or get difference between two purchase dates. It's easy to do. But what I also see that when we do user ID to user ID comparison, we also see that same purchase is also coming here. But we actually don't need same purchases because it will be considered as a one more purchase. Okay, because they consider returning user, which is like in between 0 to 7 days. So if I subtract this one minus this one, it will be zero, and this one will be considered as a repetitive user or recurring user, but which is not correct. So we need to remove this line, and that's why I'm adding one condition, and which is a1 dot id, which should not be a2 dot id. So which will simply remove this line, and we will just have only that this id which is not same. So now this looks good. So second thing is, once we get this, we need to find difference between these two purchases. So what we can do for that, we use a date different function, and in date different we can pass dates, and which will return as a day as an output. So it will basically help us to give difference between two dates. So I will just say that a2 dot here created at, and comma a1 dot created at. So this should give me purchase date difference, this should give me purchase date difference if I execute this one. And now good, we are having this purchase date difference. So what will be our next step? Our next step will be adding one more condition, and I will say that this purchase date should be between 0 and 7, and that's why what I do is I'm adding here, and after that I will say that this should be in between 0 to 7. So between, I will write here between 0 and 7, and this should actually work. If we execute this, this should get only purchases difference, which is between 0 to 7. So here we have our, that all the users which are returning users. So to simplify this, what I will do, I will just pass here user ID, because that's what we need at the end. I'm also removing rest of all things which is not required. And if I execute this, so here we are getting user list, but what we see is we are also getting duplicate user list, and which is not correct. So what we can do is I can add distinct, and after adding distinct I can see that I am only getting unique user list. And if we also order by this one based on user ID, so that will be our final answer, and that is all the active returning user. So this is our final answer. So here we understood that how can we use join on a same table. Very important, how we use this a date difference SQL function which give us difference between two dates. So yeah, this is our final answer using MySQL. Our next step is solve this problem using Apache Spark, and for that we go to our Jupyter lab. And in a Jupyter lab, first we open a Spark session. So I'm creating Spark session. If I go here, this session is created, which is having name as a problem 7. Next step, we load this data into CSV format to data frame. So now we have this data into data frame, which is currently executing. Once we have this data into data frame, next step is to make sure we have data properly loaded with the correct data type. So for that we do print schema, and in a print schema we see integer, integer, string, string, integer. Date is a string, which is not good, because when we do date operations, it needs to be in a date format. If it is in a string format, date operations will not work. So we need to change data type or create it from string to date, and that's why we need to use cast functions. And we are doing that. So what we do is column which is having created it name, we want to cast that as a date. So this will convert from string to date. So now I'll execute this one, and now our create at should be in a date format. I will execute this again, and now I see this is in a date format, so that is good. I can also execute this one. So this is in a date format. Now we'll just explore data, and we know that data in this format. So we have already solved this problem using MySQL, and we know that SQL queries work in a Spark SQL. So we just use that query and change name of the table. Before that, we need to create temporary table, and that's why I am creating temporary table, loading this data frame into temp transaction table. So this is how we have created temp table. And now I will execute same query with the join, date difference, distinct, order by, everything. And now if I'll execute, it should be giving same result. And yes, this is executing, and we have same results available here. And same way, if you go here in SQL, if you want to explore what all things it done, you go inside and you will see that this is how it's doing. It's getting data, applying filter using date difference function. So scanning data from CSV, because at the end it's getting data from CSV. So yeah, this is how this query also executed. So yeah, that's all. This is how we solve this problem 7. It was like medium level problem, but now you understand these functions, so it's easy to solve. Yeah, that's all. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in next problem or next data engineering learning session. Thank you. See you.